ring cannot be destroyed, Gimli, son of Gloin, by any craft that we here possess. The ring was made in the fires of Mount Doom. Only there can it be unmade. It must be taken deep into Mordor and cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. One of you must do this.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Welcome to the Bread and Thorns podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bread and Thorns podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we sit down and discuss literature, art, media, and other stuff we really like and how they influence the projects that we're working on. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Rosemary.
And today we're going to discuss The Lord of the Rings. That's right. We have arrived at the last of our top 10. To recap for everyone else who, I guess, if this is the first episode that you're listening to,
This
welcome.
is going to be a pretty good episode to start listening to because Lord of the Rings is amazing.
Lord of the Rings is amazing. But for those who don't know, we've been running down our list of top 10 favorite movies that we have of all time. My top 10 list is capped by The Lord of the Rings, and Rosemary's list
is also capped by Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings. Why is The Lord of the Rings? Actually, you know what? Before we go to that, because people are probably going to have questions about, what do you mean The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, like how can you have that as your number one movie of all time when it's three different films?
Because they are incorrect.
Yes.
They are actually one film.
They're one film.
Or at least I regard them as one film. And apparently Rosemary didn't think that way until I told her about it.
I did not. I was fully under the impression that they were three separate things because there's three books. There's three movies. I was like, all right, cool.
This is true. There are 3 books.
Yeah, and I'd actually done...
But in reality, it's 3 volumes, not 3 books.
Like 3 different acts of a story instead of separate things.
So what Tolkien did is that, well, for those who don't know, the Lord of the Rings film trilogy by Peter Jackson is based on a book series called The Lord of the Rings. If you don't know that,
by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Now you know. J.R.R. Tolkien is probably one of the most famous. I would say he is the most famous of the 20th century fantasy writers.
Yeah. He redefined fantasy. Like right now, fantasy, there's no part of fantasy that doesn't have some sort of like leakage from Tolkien.
Right. He kind of changed the way that we think about fantasy in the modern world, whereas before it was more along the lines of
fairy tales.
Right, fairy tales, and then elves were dwarves, dwarves were dwarves, fairies were dwarves.
Elves.
Everything was dwarves. Everything were little like short creatures,
pixies,
and they would just go around doing little magic things or whatever. And then he decided, hey, that's lame.
Yes, very lame.
Well, I don't know if he thought that was lame, but he did decide, hey, I would rather have a more kind of legendary mythological approach to this whole idea. So the elves became a little bit taller.
Like 10 times as tall.
Well, right. Because they went from being little children to kind of grown adults.
That are thousands of years old.
Right. And they would, do grown adult stuff.
Yeah.
So
that cannot experience around Earth.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was
elves, because of the way that their eyes work, they actually they see Earth as flat. Yeah. So everyone else experiences the Earth as round, and that's why like Legolas can see stuff that Aragorn can't from a far distance because they can't see the they did there's stuff. There's stuff.
I've never heard of that conception of it. I don't have my references
available, but it's absolutely true.
I've never heard of that conception of it. I'm pretty sure it was more like after the elves left, the world was made round.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure that was
I'm pretty sure that because the Earth was still round for everybody else. So for men, hobbits, dwarves, like the Earth is still round. That's why we could see the curvature of the Earth, and that's why elves can see farther than us. I don't know why I'm saying us. I don't live in Middle Earth, but that was the point.
I guess you'd have to find the source for me.
Anyway, elves are flat earthers.
Tolkien created this world of Middle Earth. and then wrote stories about it. I forgot the exact dates now because I'm old, I guess. I used to be a pretty big geek for Tolkien stuff, and I would go through. I've read the Silmarillion. I've read obviously the Hobbit. I've read the Lord of the Rings. I've actually read parts and portions of the history of Middle Earth, and so it was a joy to me, of course, when this film came out. But guess what? I actually saw the films before I read the books.
Oh.
Yeah. So I didn't even actually know about the books until after. Well, so. The history that I have with the film series is this came out when I was a little bit younger, quite a bit younger actually. Now that I've realized how old I am,
6 or 7. 6 or 7. You would have only been like 6 or 7, right?
No.
How old were you?
I'm not going to tell you now.
Well, no.
So
fine.
I was quite a bit younger, and the Lord of the Rings the Fellowship of the Ring came out. That was the first film, right? So we do. Oh yeah, we should explain the breakdown.
Oh
so
yeah.
The book series is actually one book. Tolkien wrote it as one book. And then he went to his publishers and it was like, hey, yo, you guys should publish this. And they were like, this is too long.
Money.
I don't think that we should publish it in one go. You should split it up into multiple sections. And so that's when he decided, I'm going to split the 6 volumes of The Lord of the Rings into 3. And so the first 2 volumes are The Fellowship of the Ring. The second 2 volumes are The Two Towers. And the third the third set of 2 volumes is The Return of the King. And it's just one story.
Yeah.
And then Peter Jackson, all the way back in, I guess, 1998 or 1997, he thought, well, actually, when he said, I remember he was talking about it, and he said that when he was young, he was riding a train, I think in New Zealand, and he was reading The Lord of the Rings, and as he was reading it, he was thinking, man, someone should make this into a movie.
And he's like, but then he was like, by the time that I am old enough to do something, like, it's already going to be done, and then it wasn't.
Well, it was. It was made into an animated feature. I think it was pretty decently done for that time and era.
For that time and era, yes.
But it was not
it was
measured. It didn't measure up to Professor Tolkien's vision of what his world would be.
It's like watching Snow White now. It's pasty pale and the singing is horrible.
The singing is pretty good in Snow White.
No.
It's meant to be.
It's very specific for its time.
Right, yeah.
So when you watch it, you're like, this is so outdated. And it's been outdated for decades.
I guess I would say I appreciate the movies in their time.
Okay.
So I mean I don't like Snow White or anything like that, but when I watch it, I would think that I mean like all movies. Like I don't judge Citizen Kane by today's standards. I don't like Citizen Kane that much. I think it's a very phenomenal movie for what it did, and we would not have all the cinema that we do today without Citizen Kane
existence. Like 2001 Space Odyssey. Like
same thing with like
stuff.
Godfather. Same thing with 2001 Space Odyssey. All these different films. I don't think it's fair to judge them based on like today's standards.
I feel like I have 2 different levels of judgment for entertainment, where one is like my own personal, like whether or not I like it, and then one is like, okay, how is it actually crafted and created, and in relevance to when it was made. So I have both, and so I'm speaking of the personal one of like, no, I hope I don't have to watch those movies again. I personally would go out of my way to watch Snow White.
You would go out of your way to watch Snow White?
Yeah, if Snow White is the option, I'd rather do chores.
Oh, so you wouldn't go out of your way to watch Snow White?
No, I would. Wait. No, I would go out of my way to not watch Snow White.
There so you wouldn't go out of your way to watch Snow White. Okay, all right.
English.
It's still early, apparently.
Kind of.
But, so Peter Jackson made a few horror movies, a few indie amateur horror movies. And documentaries before he did The Lord of the Rings. And then I think during all that, he was kind of like thinking, oh man, like I really like the CGI effects that we're able to do. I feel like we can push this envelope to another level. And so he began to experiment with the Lord of the Rings with that. And he came up with
did some research. He actually was trying to do a thing that was like Lord of the Rings, but it failed because it kept ending up being like such an exact derivative of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Like you would automatically know what it was. And so he was like, screw it. Like we might as well just do Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And then Weinstein and
he presented it to the producers of New Line Cinema.
Awful.
And
no, that was
you meant before
that.
Okay.
Before he prevented it, because New Line is amazing. Okay, New Line was like, you wanted to do 2 movies? Why on earth wouldn't you make 3? Like New Line was beautiful. Okay, but before that, he worked with Weinstein and a couple other people. They were going to take it away from him. Like, they were actually, like, there's speculation about whether or not it was just a threat to make him do it in one movie. But Weinstein and other people were like, no, nobody's going to go see a fantasy movie. No one's going to see it, whether it's, like, in 2 parts or if it's, like, 4 hours long. I think at that
point, they didn't have, like, I think they showed, was it, oh, man. Was it Miramax that they showed it to first? And then they didn't like it as much. But then he kind of went back and improved upon it, so that by the time that they showed it to New Line Cinema, it was a lot more presentable.
And like, I didn't realize how like this is the best. Like I've read 6 different variations on what they were originally gonna do with Lord of the Rings, and the one that they actually did is the best version in my opinion. There are a couple things that I was like, oh, that would have been really cool if they had it in there, but.
Yeah, like, I mean, I agree.
We're so lucky
Obviously,
that these are the ones.
This is my top favorite movie of all time.
Oh, gosh.
I'm also very thankful that we got to see the masterpiece that is The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so, of course, at that point in time, before he showed it to New Line Cinema, he was thinking, oh, man, they're not going to take 3 films. I'm just going to make it into like 2
Well, he wanted
films.
to make The Hobbit. He wanted to make The Hobbit, and then so it was a 3-film thing of like The Hobbit, and then 2 things that were Lord of the Rings, because he knew he could split it up because it was one film or one project, one thing.
Right.
And then The Hobbit was like dually owned, and so something where like they were like, okay, well, we can't do The Hobbit because there's too many people who own it right now. And so they were like, okay, well, that leaves Lord of the Rings. Dope, let's go. And then they were trying to do it in the 2 movies, and then no one wanted to do it in 2 movies. And then when they brought it to New Line
Cinema, they said, aren't there 3 books? And he's like, yeah. And
it was
like
a J.K. Rowling kind of thing of like everyone said no to them, and so he tried to. Peter Jackson was like, he kept telling New Line like, hey, we have so many like meetings and whatnot, like we're so crazy busy, dude, like we'll get to you when we can. They had no meetings. They were not busy. Everyone had turned them down because they were trying to like build stuff. But even before they got to them, New Line, was it the producer? Anyway, like the guy, one of the main people in New Line and one of the main people who wanted to work on the movie, like they both actively like loved Lord of the Rings and wanted to work on this film with these guys, and saw that they had vision like before they even got there. So Peter Jackson just kind of like
when you watched like the behind the scenes footage, it's really easy to tell how much passion the team had for this project. Like when you look at kind of the way that they scouted talent, the way that they went on set locations, the way that they built sets and everything like that, just the amount of detail, costumes, everything that they put into this film was just such a kind of passion project kind of thing. And so, as we said, New Line said you should make 3 movies, right? And so, isn't this 3 films? Well, so my argument is that just like The Lord of the Rings was split into 3 books, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, quote unquote, is actually one film split into 3 movies.
Yes.
Right, and 3 parts. And another, of course,
That's
the story.
Why you marathon it.
Sure, yeah. So you can see kind of course the story is one, right? So across from the Fellowship to the 2 Towers to the Return of the King, that's just one story. You don't have an end until you don't have an end with Fellowship. You have a cliffhanger. You don't have an end with 2 Towers. You have a cliffhanger. You have an end, a proper ending.
You have several endings with Return of the King.
Well, I would say you have a proper ending with the Return of the King that actually brings closure to the story that's going on. And the same thing kind of happened with the film trilogy, obviously being based on the books. But also what happened with the film trilogy was that they took a literal 365 days to do the production of the entire trilogy in one. So in 1 year, they didn't split it up into 3 years. They actually did all of the production within 1 year. And so what happened was that in 1999 or so, I believe at the latter part of 1999, they did what we call pre-production. So there's different aspects to film production.
I'm just over here like, whoa, because I've watched pieces. So, okay, one, the versions that we're going to be talking about are the extended editions, okay? And when you get the extended editions of Lord of the Rings. Oh, yeah, they're the only edition. They should be the only.
There are no other editions of Lord of the Rings. What are you talking about?
No, because, okay, this is, and I've said this in one of the other episodes.
That was a joke, guys.
But
of course there are extended editions.
There are theatrical editions and extended editions, and I grew up with the extended editions, and so I didn't realize that there was any other option, okay? I didn't know. And so I was over at a friend's house in, like, high school, and they were watching Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And so then we watched Fellowship of the Ring.
And there were parts missing.
And I was like, am I crazy?
Yes, you are.
And so
Beautiful
literally,
mind.
like, the only thing that I could think of was
that should be a compliment at this point, right?
Yes.
You made up such extraordinary.
No, my mind jumped from like, wait, there's parts missing. And instead of jumping to the logical conclusion of maybe there are different forms of this, I instantly was like, did I make up parts of Lord
I
of
am
the
such
Rings?
a genius that I put these things together and created an entire new film trilogy.
The arrogance of a 15-year-old sophomore is just like, yeah, no, I invented Aragorn singing a song like, in an elven language that I have not learned yet. Like, anyway.
Had you read the books at that point?
I had not. I did not read the Lord of the Rings trilogy until
I'm just asking
because
Aragorn does sing quite often in the books.
Like, I guess it had been well, and okay, so I had listened to the audiobooks as a kid when we were on a road trip. I was asleep during most of Two Towers.
You're not going to be able to.
I was in and out during Fellowship and Return of the King. Okay,
I don't think kids can listen to that.
No,
that.
And I'm so sad because like when I turned 18 and one of the jobs that I got.
But not
Lord of
the Rings.
But one of the jobs that I got, they had a conference room up in one of the areas that they like never used, and so I would just go in there and read before my shift started.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you would go listen to it and you just fall asleep.
No, and so something where I was able to go through the 3 books, and I'm so sad that I didn't read them before because the humor is amazing. Like I didn't realize like the movies are amazing. The movies are spectacular, but the books are they're books. They're well written books. Like I thought that they were dry, boring things that have been turned into movies, and that's one of the reasons why people were so upset about the differences. And then I read it and I was like, these are magical.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings also just for me personally happened to be also my favorite, I guess, fantasy novel of all time. So that's just something that I have as well with it. Obviously, so for me, they're actually different worlds, and I don't really. I use the books to kind of inform on the films a little bit. I don't really compare them. I don't contrast them either. You can, but I don't.
But you don't need to.
I don't think it's like helpful for either medium. Because the things that you have to do with a book are different than things that you have to do in film. The changes that they made for the film, if you're watching the film for the film and not to compare it to the books, but just the film for the film, then these are, well, obviously I feel like these are the greatest movies that have ever been made. And so for those who don't know the film process, there's what we call pre-production, production, and then post-production. And then obviously the release of the film. And so in pre-production, what you generally do is you do casting calls. So there you're trying to do auditions. You're looking at what actors are best suited for the roles that you're looking at. You're doing the writing as well. It's generally a collaborative effort. There's generally not really a single writer on a project. There's a main writer, and then there are people that help that main writer. In this this adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, it was Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and I always forget the third person.
How? There's someone with a how.
No. I always forget the third person, so I'm going to look it up right now.
But there's like Howe, like that's the name. And because I think that one was the one in charge of
Philippa Boyens. There you go. All right, so Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and Peter Jackson.
Never mind, yeah, and they're
the main writers, and then I'm pretty sure all 3. I have no idea who you're talking about at this point.
Okay, so Philippa Boyens, yeah.
And so we have the writers doing their thing, and then you scout locations of where you want to film the entire.
Oh, he was the illustrator.
Oh,
John Howe.
Yeah, John. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, John Howe.
There we go.
Alan Lee. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're actually 2 of the main. They're the 2 main illustrators for this project.
Gorgeous.
But both of them are actually
and
Tolkien
some of their artwork
illustrators.
is filmed in the movies. It's too like the a lot of the stuff in the Rivendell, like the artwork and the Balrogs in the book that Saruman has, like those are illustrations. I've learned things.
Yeah. So
cool.
the Alan, for example, Alan Lee was already a Lord of the Rings illustrator. He's probably one of the main artists to depict Tolkien, the Middle Earth of Tolkien, even before the film trilogy. became a thing. And then when Peter Jackson was assembling his team, he decided, hey, let's get these people who have already been in the world of Middle Earth for so long, and let's get them to inform us about the concepts and everything like that. And so that's all pre-production, and of course scouting locations. And so the movie crew decided to film all of it in New Zealand, or most of it in New Zealand, like 99.99% in New Zealand. Right. So sometimes they filmed in the UK, and sometimes they went elsewhere. But the vast majority was in New Zealand. And then
it's there. They just we're like, this part of New Zealand is for Lord of the Rings, and it's just
no, it's actually several different locations across New Zealand. So New Zealand is 2 islands, and they filmed across New Zealand, not just one location. So Hobbiton is one location. The plains of Rohan are another location. The plains of Pelennor are another location.
Were all connected.
They're connected in the sense that they're in New Zealand.
But I didn't realize that they had to. Okay.
Yeah, all so right. they all had different ones, and so but of course you have the studio that you have with oh man, what's Peter Jackson's studio called? It's a very famous name now, but it's oh man, I forgot. But he has his own kind of studio thing that he creates his films with.
Dun, 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 dun.
You're looking it up.
Weta Digital?
Yeah, there you go. Weta Digital. Yeah, Weta
I didn't
Digital.
realize that was his. Yeah. They kept referencing it when I was like, yesterday I basically did an entire marathon of the Lord of the Rings movies. I am so tired. And I was doing research while I was watching them.
Are you tired? You should be pumped.
I know. No, I am. I'm both. I am so excited for this because we get to talk about Lord of the Rings and it's amazing. However, I just also spent 11 and a half hours yesterday.
Yeah, so Weta Digital is not only responsible for the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy that came afterwards, they're also responsible for a lot of CGI work that went into Hollywood after these films were made.
Well, and before, because it was responsible for the Frighteners. That was one of the reasons why
that was Peter Jackson
got Lord of the
Yeah. So that was his crew already.
Yeah.
Right? And so they decided, hey, let's tackle this huge film trilogy. And so the production aspect of the trilogy took place across 365 days. And that is when you do the actual shooting. That's when you do the dailies of it. That's when you kind of are rehearsing. That's when all of the things in a film production come together. And all 3 movies were filmed in one take. And not one take, but in one kind of... It wasn't 3 years and they filmed for 3 things. It was actually 1 year, and they filmed for all 3 in that 1 year. And then after that, of course, during that first year, you also had the post-production in which they were getting ready to release The Fellowship of the Ring. And then the second year, so that was 2001. And then 2002, you have The Two Towers. And 2003, you have The Return of the King.
Nice.
And so all of these things just... because of the way it was filmed, because of the story aspect, and actually because the Academy Awards judges did not... So Fellowship was nominated for a lot of awards. Two Towers was also nominated for a lot of awards. But neither of those films won any awards. And what happened, or the rumor actually, I don't know if this is official.
Oh, I thought it was official, but all right.
But the rumor is that all the Academy Award judges waited until the 3rd film to give this trilogy...
It's proper due.
Right, it's proper due. And what happened was that in 2003, they won almost every award.
There was like one random side one that didn't, but that was it.
They won 11 awards, which is the most any single film has ever won, except for, I believe, Titanic.
Oh, no, I thought it'd be Titanic.
I think, no, Titanic also won 11, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's possible. It's either the same or Titanic had less. So I'm okay with it being the same, but I could have sworn... No, because I was doing research and stuff, and so I was pretty sure that...
I might be wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's the same.
Okay.
But it's I mean...
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Not Titanic. Well, Titanic's okay.
Titanic's pretty good, too. No, Lord of the Rings
But the Lord of the Rings, of course, won all of the... awards, except I'm pretty sure for one that was kind of obscure.
I'm really curious now.
I'm pretty sure. And so the accolades that came in was for, in a sense, the trilogy, not necessarily just The Return of the King, Right. And so with all these things, for me at least, very much so, I think of the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, as one film rather than 3 films or 3 movies. And so that's why, for me, it is the top number 1.
And they have the record for most Oscars. Wait. No, okay, so they won 17 out of the 30 Academy Award nominations.
Mm-hmm.
And Return of the King holds the record for most Oscars with 11 alongside Titanic and Ben-Hur. So, okay, so it's the 11 in both of them.
Yeah, so I shouldn't have said that Fellowship and Two Towers didn't win anything, but they just didn't win all of the kind of accolades that people thought at the time they should have gotten.
Because they should have, but
because they really should have. And so when you combine everything together, that film trilogy really does have the most accolades ever. And so
in Wikipedia, there's like a graph for like, okay, here's what is it? It's organization who gave them the awards. Here's the award category, and then the recipients, and then the result. And so there's like so many nominations, and it's like 50-50 for like nominations and how many they won.
Yeah.
And then the couple that aren't those are like runner up. And I'm like, dang, okay.
It's really impressive what this film trilogy did. I mean, for me watching this back, it's kind of revisiting the past, but also seeing, oh my gosh, we are still living under the shadow of this film
and it could have been a failure. Like one of the things I was watching it yesterday is like, because again, one of the themes for me with this list of movies is the fact that like all the movies on my list are movies that I love, I adore, and I haven't really analyzed them. Like I love them and they're spectacular movies. They're brilliant. I think they're amazing, but I haven't really taken the time to like stare at them and pick them apart and see how they tick and see how they work and whether or not they deserve all of the honor that I am placing upon them with my love and affection. With Lord of the Rings,
I'm just kidding. In my mind, it's of course they're worth it, but you know,
I think so. At the moment, yeah.
There cannot be enough praise.
So Oh no! I said my list.
Oh, okay.
I was like, you're complimenting my list a lot, Isaac. Are you sure you mean that?
I just meant the Lord of the Rings.
Just the Lord of the Rings. But no, and so it's something where with watching Lord of the Rings, and especially with the studying that I did yesterday of like how it came into existence, it could have been a massive flop.
It could have been really, really disastrous. Like Peter Jackson could have ended his career with this.
What a Digital was responsible for Aragon. Okay, and several other movies. There were some really good movies, like Enchanted was in there, and X-Men Last Stand. Like these are like good movies, okay? But they're also responsible for other things, and it's something where like Peter Jackson did like a
Jackson
Muppet
didn't direct
horror movie
Aragon
thing, as well as like a bunch of horror and documentaries and stuff. And like he wanted to do this as a history, so it could have been boring. But it just perfect cast, perfect score, perfect. Like that's why it got so many awards is because of the fact that like
it's one of the things that when you study how the film came together, it's really hard to not believe that it was divine because of all the aspects that had to come together and did come together almost perfectly. I mean, just looking at the cast, every single person in each role is perfect. You got Ian McKellen, Ian Holmes, you got Viggo Mortensen, Elijah Wood. You have Orlando Bloom was a completely new person at that point, right?
Yeah, and he did his best. He did so good.
I think he killed it. I think they got exactly what they needed out of him for the role of Legolas. Yeah. You have Christopher Lee as Saruman, right?
Who gave tips on how to kill people?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because he's amazing.
Well, he's been in wars.
He's what James Bond is based off of, and he's in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right, and he was also a friend of Tolkien.
Yeah.
And so having him on, right? Again, we mentioned John Howe and Alan Lee.
Yeah. Howard Shore is fantastic too. Like he did
Howard
stuff
Shore
before too.
Before this was not
super popular, but he was good.
So one of the things, I mean, as a musician, obviously, one of the things that really hits home for me is the score, the soundtrack for the film trilogy. And
this is my favorite soundtrack of all time.
I probably will not be able to do justice during our analysis for it because it deserves
hours,
entire 3 episodes of
going through
it
and showing you how amazing it is.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that you can do is you can actually buy the score, but buy the full extended score with analysis and the notes that he wrote on that. Yeah. So
I love that so much.
I like my collection, but recently I found out that they actually released the entire soundtrack on vinyl, and that's the one I want. Each of the vinyl things are like $500, so I have to.
That makes sense for each movie.
Yeah. So that's about $1,500.
Well, it's also like a gigantic score.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
But
that's like
when you're listening it in vinyl in a full kind of sound mix set, it's just going to be glorious. But the way that Howard Shore wrote the soundtrack is actually as an opera. And so when you look,
that makes sense.
when you listen to it, there are things as you're listening to the soundtrack, you immediately pick up where you are in the film.
Yes.
That's what the music is meant to do.
Yes.
But then you have these motifs, you have these themes, you have
more motifs than any other movie to date, by the way. Because it's like 100. No, not my understanding, because it includes the Star Wars movies and it includes several other films. And it's my understanding is it's at least up until 2018.
Yeah, I would say until I would say until now. Or I would say until about 4 years from now, or like before now, right? Around 2016 because
2016, 2018.
Yeah, it's really
somewhere in there.
It's really difficult to argue against the MCU just by the sheer breadth of what they're able to do.
So many movies that doesn't.
So a lot of people would then argue back, like Lord of the Rings is a trilogy. You know, you had
Marvel. You need all the movies.
8 hours, right?
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm not saying.
No, you're right.
You know, obviously, I think Howard Shore's score.
Do they have like Thor's theme and stuff?
Yeah,
and
you do have that.
It's not as obvious.
It's not obvious at all.
Okay, fine.
Actually.
They have more. They have quantity. Lord of the Rings has quality.
I agree.
Cool.
And so this soundtrack from Howard Shore is just. It's splendid just to listen to. You can really sit in it. Whenever I read The Lord of the Rings, I turn on the soundtrack, and it's just like in the background as I'm reading.
Oh, I like that.
Sometimes it doesn't match because I'm reading like Tom Bombadil and like the Nazgul are showing up in the soundtrack. So sometimes it doesn't match, but a lot of times it just provides that floor of music for experiencing the story.
No, I literally will go through and listen to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack while I'm like cleaning or something, so I can have the movie playing in my head.
When you're or you just have to amp yourself up, right? So you have that Nazgul theme like going. You're like,
or I'll have it playing at work or whatever, and it's just like, this is okay. It's amazing work day now. We're good.
or if you want to celebrate, just turn on Merry and Pippin singing at the dragon. Dragon Inn. Yeah. And so you have.
There's a pint of beer inside this took.
Keep going.
That's the last line.
No, you got to sing the whole thing.
I'm really sad that I can't.
It's okay.
I'm heartbroken.
Can you sing The Road Goes Ever On?
No. Oh. The only one that I know how to sing like all the way through is the Misty Mountain one. Not because the
Misty
Hobbit
Mountain
movies.
One is
I know
not
it's
in
the
here.
Hobbit. I know.
How dare you?
That's the only song that I actively. That's not entirely true. That one and Into the West.
You can sing Into the West?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right this moment?
Go for it.
Do you really want me to?
Yeah.
Like genuinely?
Yeah, while I look at my notes.
I feel like if I start singing, you're just going to be like, no, I was just kidding.
No, go for it. I'm just waiting now at this point. You're making everybody wait.
The first part, all right, but lay down your sweet and weary head. Night is falling. I am so nervous right now that I'm just like I mixed the two because it's the journeys. Yeah, it's you have come to journey. Yeah, you've come to journey's end. Sleep now, dream of the ones who came before. They are calling from across distant shores.
Don't rush.
I am nervous. That's no okay. You got the.
That was good,
first
guys.
Verse.
Everyone, please give compliments to Rosemary. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So that is Lord of the Rings for us as one film.
Yes.
All right, but what we are going to do because it is such a long film, or I think it's such a long film. I guess you think of it as three movies still, right?
I still kind of think of it as 3 movies, but I usually watch them together. So like when I'm like I'm gonna watch Lord of the Rings, it's usually
essentially it's one
all
film.
3 movies with
Can you start in the middle
and food? I have because Two Towers is my favorite segment of the 3, and so it's something where I can just watch Two Towers, but I can't just watch Return of the King.
Oh, I forgot to finish my own story. So
yes!
this film came out, or the Fellowship came out in 2001. And I was hearing about it from all of my family. My friends at that point weren't really watching it. I don't know why.
Probably not.
But my family was like, "Oh my goodness, this is such a good film." And then we decided apparently to get this Chinese bootleg version DVD, and it was the.
Was it actually in Chinese?
No.
Oh,
it was.
Hey, I'm sorry. The way that was phrased.
What went on back then was you didn't have Chinese dubs at that point in time. It was just you had the film and then you had subtitles.
Oh,
right?
Okay, that makes sense. I do
the
that with animes
quality
all the
of
time.
the film was terrible because they're all bootlegged, right?
So it's like someone with a camera in the theater or whatever.
Sort of, yeah. Like like the aspect ratio is exactly right. But back then we were still going
slanted.
from 4:3 to widescreen, right? And so sometimes you cut off the size of that widescreen. I believe Lord of the Rings is filmed in 2.39, something like that. The aspect ratio of the film.
I know what you're referring to. I do not know.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Exacts
I'm pretty sure I'm
what
right.
You're referring to.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
99%. Everything's 99% right now. So, so my mom and dad brought it home, and my brother watched it himself, and he was like, "Dude, you gotta watch this." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And so we sat down to watch it.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, I was scared out of my mind.
What? First 5 minutes.
And it was.
Did you have the rings?
Yeah. So right. You have the rings,
and
then Galadriel comes in and explains the 9 rings.
Yeah.
And so when the 9 lift up or not lift up, they hold their rings, and then the camera pans back.
Yeah.
And it just freaked me out because like the kings looked so uncanny, right? And then you have, and then from there you go into the party. Right?
Yeah.
From the intro, you go into the party because at that point there was no extended version, right? Right. And so you have the party immediately, but the party is mostly night. And so there's this kind of ominous
but there's
tone.
The whole day thing with Gandalf and the fireworks and all the stuff before that.
No. So all of that is very short in the theatrical version, right? You don't have Bilbo explaining who the hobbits are. Remember, you basically begin with Bilbo. Shouting for Frodo, like, "Where's that boy?"
Yeah.
And you have Frodo in the thing. He meets up with Gandalf, and then Gandalf goes to
That's
see Bilbo.
Tragic.
They smoke, and then it's the party, right?
That's tragic.
And the party is night.
I have only watched the theatrical versions once.
Yeah. So
ever.
So the party's
Thank
at
God.
night, and there's just this ominous tone about it.
It is.
Right?
And then when Bilbo's speech comes up, it's kind of
right. And he just
dark
disappears,
too,
right?
Yeah.
And then he goes in, and then there's the
like, "I shouldn't have
Sauron
waited
eye
this
thing that
long."
happens, right? And right, and like
No,
Gandalf's
that's with Gandalf.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, when Gandalf goes to pick it up and he's just like,
right. Yeah, that's so I'm skipping parts,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of summarizing really quickly.
Okay.
And then so Gandalf goes and picks it up, and he's like, right. So with Sauron, I'm just like, as a kid,
It
I'm
took
just
me like 10 years to stop flinching at that. So yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, it's super scary, right?
Yeah.
And then when Gollum is tortured like on screen,
You right.
I just went, okay, I'm done. I'm so done. Right.
That's a horrible.
The Nazgul come out, and I run away.
Really?
And so that was my first experience with Fellowship. But-
It is the darkest. It is much darker than The Hobbit. So like The Hobbit has dark points, but like as
Well,
we
at that
know,
point, I
it's
didn't know about
already
The Hobbit.
it's already like a children's film, and so it's something where with Lord of the
The
Rings,
Hobbit is
it
much more of a
dark.
children's story, and then the film actually takes on that tone.
Yes.
I was actually surprised. I recently went to read The Lord of the Rings, and obviously start with Fellowship, and it's actually a lot more childlike at the beginning than you think it is. And so for me, what happened was
I need
I
to
was
reread them
really
again.
intrigued. Because on the back cover of that bootleg DVD, you have that little image of the party or the Fellowship being surrounded by all the goblins in Moria.
Oh.
And I never got to that point in the movie, and I was like angry. Like I was so angry at myself. I was like, I didn't make it here. And so and at school, my teacher started talking about it.
Did you laugh when you actually saw that scene for the first? Because I was watching it yesterday, and I was like, I feel like Isaac would have laughed at this.
Which scene?
The goblin scene?
When the goblins were
Yeah,
coming
because
in.
they defeat the orcs, and
I
then
wasn't
it's like, wait,
laughing.
there's goblins.
I was like intensely like. By the time I got to that scene when I was watching it, I was loving it. Right.
So yeah, no. But then when
I
they like
wasn't
run
laughing.
away, like I was because
No, I
everyone's like
wasn't.
woo. Like,
No. So you gotta let me finish my story.
Okay,
so,
fine.
So all my teachers started
So you ran
talking
away.
about it.
Okay.
Right? And so I'm not a little kid. I think I'm in middle school.
Okay.
And but I'm terrified, right, of this film. But then my teacher started talking about it, and I was like, man, I need to give it another chance, and I really want to get to that point. But I don't watch Fellowship. what I do is I read The Two Towers, which is really weird, right?
Okay.
And so, because my English teacher at that point, she had promised our class that if we all read The Two Towers, she was going to take us to go watch it at the end of the year.
Oh, nope. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to start
like
here
that.
and I want to watch it. Unfortunately, I was the only one that read The Two Towers. No one else in my English class did. And so I was really excited about it. I finished the book and I thought, okay,
this is amazing.
I need to actually read the entire thing.
Yeah.
So I read all 3 books and then I went to watch Fellowship. When I went to watch Fellowship for the first time, so the first time I watched Fellowship and I got scared, it was really interesting. It was ironic because it was morning or afternoon. Right. Yeah. And I was trying to watch it then. But then the first time I fully watched Fellowship, I like turned down all the lights, made sure like I couldn't get interrupted. And I just like watched the film.
Yeah.
Right? And it was great. So wait, what was your point before?
I had a point.
You had something. You said I was laughing at something with Moria and the goblins.
I guess I was just curious if you laugh when the goblin scene happens, because like they're completely surrounded and they're prepared to fight, and then all of a sudden it's like, and then it's like,
oh no, that wasn't funny.
And I thought that you would.
That was terrifying, like in a good way. Like when you're sitting there, and I mean, I guess because a lot of people have seen, because like MCU, because of cinema as it is now. Actually, because of this film, the way that cinema is now is very big, epic, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, like I grew up with this film. Like before for me, there was a before the Lord of the Rings and then after the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
in terms
there was
of time,
no before Lord of the Rings for me.
And so I'd seen films. I'd seen The Matrix. I'd seen stuff like Ocean's 11. I'd seen those kinds of films before.
And their CGI is different, or their digitalization stuff. It wasn't as big.
I mean, there's no like this kind of CGI in like Ocean's 11, but The Matrix, they're obviously the machines are CGI and everything like that.
Well, but with Ocean's 11, it's not big. It's very human-sized.
Right. It's a human story.
Yeah.
So what you have then is you don't have any prior experience with any other kinds of cinematic, I want to say like glory in a sense.
Yes.
Right? And so when the Balrog shows up, it's done so well because when we get to it, it'll be fun. But the setup is perfect. The party is surrounded by goblins. They're screwed. They're very clearly screwed. Right? These goblins are going to kill them.
I feel
and
like
rip
they
them
would
to
have
shreds.
taken a solid amount of goblins out. Though.
I mean, yes, but they would have died.
Probably.
Like maybe Gandalf would have like survived, and Frodo puts on the ring. Gandalf like hikes him out or something like that.
Maybe
everyone else would have just been done.
Him, Aragorn, Frodo.
No, I'm pretty sure Aragorn would have sacrificed himself to make sure that those two.
I feel like Gandalf would
have
told him to run though with Frodo.
Maybe like that. Yeah. So but they would have been done at that point.
They would have been destroyed.
At that point they're gonna die. Then this huge tremor shows up, right? Or tremor of sound, right? And again, I watched this with really good speakers at that point as well. Right? It wasn't a door opening. It was just you saw.
No, you can hear like it sounds like the stone is moving.
Right. So it sounds like an earthquake. What's happening, right? And so you're in underground tunnel, right? You're in an underground. You're in Khazad-dûm, right?
Yeah.
And the goblins are about to kill you. And then suddenly something so terrifying comes that it makes the goblins run away.
Yeah.
And so you're in that moment, and you're like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
Right? and Gandalf like and Gandalf like kind of he's kind of perceiving what's going on.
He's just like, no.
Right. Because
he knows.
Everyone else was scared of the goblins. But now they look at Gandalf, and Gandalf looks much more scared, right, than they were before. And they go, of course, you have Boromir saying, "What is this new devilry, right? What is this new devilry, right?" And the boom keeps on going. You start to see that orange thing, right? The orange flare, and he goes, "A Balrog of Morgoth," and the camera turns immediately or cuts immediately to Legolas's absolutely terrified face, right? And as an audience member, you're just like,
catch that.
"Oh my gosh!"
I will have to go catch that next time. Okay,
so,
I'm so sad now because they do cut to his face, but I didn't.
Yeah, he's completely terrified, and it's kind of justified because he's the only one
who would know what that is.
Right, outside of Gandalf, who would know what a Balrog is. He grows up hearing tales about how Fëanor was completely dismembered by a Balrog.
Who was considered one of the greatest of his ever.
He has living relatives that have fought Balrogs,
yes.
right? And so, like the absolute terror on his face, and everyone else is just like, "What are we going to deal with?" And Gandalf's like, "Run!" Right? And you have that adventure that goes forth. And so
the stairs and the falling over.
Wow,
and
just hit a wall there.
I got so excited.
Yeah.
Because it's a big scene, and then you have this, and apparently the stairs was like an on the spot kind of thing, or not on the spot, but like they didn't have that written, and then when they did it, they just kind of happened, and it was like, what?
Yeah, and so that was a spontaneous moment that really worked well in film because you have the tension of what's going on, and it just keeps racketing up.
Good.
And I think a lot of people maybe today going into the film because they've watched things like the MCU, maybe they watched like Pirates or whatever.
Yeah.
All these different films, it doesn't seem like a big moment. But
it does, but not as impressive as when you put it into
right, because
it's like,
we're kind of used
when
to
this was.
We're kind of used to the inundation of CGI, right? And so when we go into a film, that's what we're kind of expecting. But a lot of the Lord of the Rings is actually subtle, much more so than what's going on today.
Yes.
And so
that's why it's good.
Right. Yeah. That's I would agree. I would agree with that. And so when you go into the film, like first of all, you want to watch the film like just. If you have Rosemary beside you, like give her a face mask because she needs to be quiet, right?
Yeah, no, actually, I'm so sorry, but that is absolutely accurate. If you're gonna watch any movie that if
you haven't never seen the Lord of the Rings, right?
If you're gonna watch a movie with me, okay, actually, it's not true. I can be silent during Lord of the Rings.
I was kidding for the most part.
No, but it's really a sad truth about me is the fact that like if you're gonna watch a movie with me. If I have never seen it before, please have watched it before because I will ruin it for you unless you enjoy. Okay, that's not true. I am very selective with who I watch movies with now because so many people hate how much I react during movies because it's not just commentary. It's like screaming, hitting the chair, whacking walls, up out of my seat like, no, how dare you do this? And it's just this whole, it is a multi-level like immersed experience for me when I watch movies, and so it's one of those
So Lord of the Rings for me is like a film.
Lord of the Rings without all
that.
It takes a lot of effort, but I can do it.
Yeah. So Lord of the Rings for me is really an experience. It's not you go to the movies to have fun. It's you. I mean, you do want to have fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun, but it's an experience as well. It's kind of like the last. I shouldn't say this, but it's a representation of a previous era of film when you went to an experience of film rather just go to be entertained. There you go. Right.
Okay.
And so Fellowship does this really well. Right. And it's by the subtleties of that film. And when you're watching, I think if you bring an expectation onto the film because of kind of modern day sensibilities, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. But if you go into the film going, okay, I want to experience something out of this film, right? And then you start from the beginning and just kind of have a beginner's mind with it and watch it through. It's very difficult to, I think at least, it's very difficult to not come out of it going, wow, that actually kind of changed my life a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not exaggerating on that because obviously Lord of the Rings is my favorite film of all time, right?
Woo!
And so you have that ratcheting up of tension. You go from these goblins are going to kill us to something worse than goblins.
Because it starts before that, so it just kind of it keeps the entire movie keeps building and building and building of what is going to be killing us.
Yeah, and so I'm just talking about the Balrog section though. And so the Balrog comes in.
Yeah, because there's a brief pause between the orcs and the goblins. So goblins.
So you have the goblins like run away, right? And then all you hear is the boom, boom. And then, of course, the tremendous soundtrack by Howard Shore, which just starts to ratchet it up as they run. They're like, da, 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 right? And so they get to that bridge, right? Or they get to the doorway, and then Gandalf is like, swords are of no more use here, right? And he like pushes.
He's like, go!
Yeah. And Aragorn is like, he doesn't really know. He kind of knows because he's older. He's from an older nobility. But he doesn't really know what they're up against. And so Gandalf's like, you gotta lead them on.
Run!
Right? And so they go, and then you get to that little stairway, right? And they this little rock comes in, and then so they got to jump across the stairway, right? Because it's downhill, right?
Yes.
And so they begin to jump.
Yeah.
Right. And then as they begin to jump, orcs start firing arrows at them.
Yes.
Right. And then so orcs start firing arrows. So Legolas has to shoot back. Aragorn has to shoot back while they're trying to jump this gap on these stairs. And then a
rock comes through.
No, the Balrog goes like it's hitting the walls, right? Because as it's walking, and so this rock comes down from the ceiling and hits behind them the stairway.
I just assumed it was because he was walking. I didn't realize he was whacking stuff.
Oh, I assume it's because he's whacking stuff. Because when he was just walking towards Gandalf at the end, there was nothing that fell, right? So I was assuming that he was hitting stuff.
Could make sense.
But I could be wrong. Right?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter, right? So
dwarf stone craftsmanship is shoddy. No, it's not. It's
that's the point,
I know,
right?
Yeah.
That's the point. Like it's you see the Khazad-dûm, it's so glorious, and then it's getting destroyed by this thing, right? And so this piece of rock comes down, hits the stair behind them, disconnects the stairway, and so what's his name? Gimli. Right? No one tosses a door, right? He jumps over, and then Legolas has to catch him by the beard, right? While the orcs are shooting them with their arrows, right? And then
Aragorn
he gets across,
Frodo.
and then as Gimli does that, the thing falls back, and so Aragorn and the pieces of the stairs come off, and so Aragorn has to throw Frodo up so that they can avoid that.
It's foreshadowing of him throwing Gimli later on. I hadn't realized that.
I mean,
it's probably not foreshadowing, but
it's not really foreshadowing. So they climb up, and there's that little piece that's kind of wobbling, and they figure out, okay, we have to lean forward to get the momentum to shift down.
The fact that works, dude,
right,
is just
the fact that they can think of that at that moment, or that Aragorn can think of that at that moment, shows the quality of his character.
Aragorn is a magical. Did I
say
Aragorn? Aragorn
is a moment of silence
magical
for Rosemary. For Aragorn.
I was gonna say Aragorn is a magical being, okay? And so apparently Unicorn and Aragorn just kind of.
Well, so if Viggo Mortensen is out there listening to us,
I love you.
You have now been typecast as Aragorn. Just kidding. But
oh my goodness.
But yeah, so they figure out you got to lean forward. And then so they lean forward, and slowly that stairway hits the bottom part, and they're able to leap down.
Yeah.
Right as they leap down, the entire thing
falls
collapses.
Over.
Beautifully built up tension, right? And then right when they leap over, you hear that bum 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 ba da dum, and it's just it's a moment of cinematic glory.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And then they get to this itty bitty little bridge.
Right. And they have to cross the itty little bitty bridge when you finally have seen the Balrog, right? This huge thing.
Running after you. Well, he's slowly pacing after you.
And so, yeah, there's just so much to that part of that film. And I was all wrapped up into it.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, did I mention? I actually watched The Two Towers before I watched Fellowship.
That breaks my heart a little bit. That also makes sense because one of the other things that you had told me is the rewatching that took place, the insane rewatching that took place.
Two Towers was also my favorite movie.
Because it's so good.
It is really good, but also because it was when it came out, I watched it and I was like, this is so good. I also had a bootleg version of that, by the way. And so it was so good that I kind of stole the discs from my brother. Nice. And I would watch it every day coming home after school. Mm-hmm. I would just watch it. I would come home after school.
How long would you say?
And
how many months?
So, right. I don't know anymore. I can say that Two Towers is the film that I've seen the most out of the three parts.
Well, yeah, because you watched it over and over and over again every single day after school for an unknown amount of time.
Because the Battle of Helm's Deep was just so glorious. It's so good.
I feel like I've watched Two Towers mostly for the music. Like Battle of Helm's Deep is amazing. But
when we get to Helm's Deep, I'm going to gush because there's no amount of praise for that moment.
Okay, so Lord of the Rings, for me, the reason why it's number one, as you've kind of heard, is the fact that one, musically, it's gorgeous, and
Now you're using the word gorgeous instead of beautiful.
Because it's better than beautiful.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay.
It's better than beautiful. Beautiful it's not quite every day, but it is kind of every day. It's like a child giggling at you. This is like giant pile of gold has been donated to me, and I get to just relish the beauty and the magnificence.
So yesterday I was looking up because my copy of The Lord of the Rings is getting old, and I want to donate it to Goodwill before it like gets too old that no one wants it.
My Two Towers has scratches on it, and I was so sad. I'm sorry. I just found it yesterday, and I was like, I treated you well, and now you're too old. Anyway, I'm sad now.
So I want to donate my book before it becomes like that.
Yeah.
So I want to donate it. So I was looking up other editions of The Lord of the Rings, the book that I would want to upgrade from my current edition.
Oh, I meant the movie, by the way.
I have the second edition.
You mean the book. I mean the movie.
Oh, I meant the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found this edition of the Lord of the Rings book. It's like $500. But someone basically took the 10th anniversary edition of the Lord of the Rings and put a leather cover on it and did like decorations on it. So you have like the Tree of Gondor on the back, and then you have Tree of Gondor on the front, and then you have Tolkien's signature on the back. Right, he etched it into the leather there, and then he like painted on the side. And it's an illustrated edition of the Lord of the Rings. So that is what I want right now.
I have an encyclopedia of Tolkien, and that's gorgeous, but dang, dude.
Yeah. So that's gonna be my next edition of the Lord of the Rings. That's how much I love this film.
I'm literally like kind of like hunched over right now in just like shock. Just like, how did I not know that was a thing?
No, it was only recently, I think 5 years ago that he started doing this. It's a guy on Etsy, but so it's not.
That's still like, I wish, not that I have $500 to drop on something I don't need.
Oh, you need, or I need.
Want it. You might need.
I need.
Like the One Ring.
Yes. Lord of the Rings is my one ring, ironically.
My precious.
All right, so another reason for me why The Lord of the Rings is so good is the plot of it.
Yes.
It's a very simple plot, right?
It's really cool, though, because it's not normal.
Well, and when you break it down, it's really, really simple.
Yes.
It's not just like, there's not much to the plot that is, I mean, it's set in this very complex, very in-depth world, obviously, of Middle-earth. But the actual plot of The Lord of the Rings is not it's very easy to grasp. And in a sense, I think that actually lends itself to being so universal.
That's why it's liked so well.
Yeah, like children can relate to it because actually it starts with children, right? Like hobbits are basically children, right? In this world.
I would say, yeah.
Like all their antics, all their entire culture, it's very much based on, if you were like to live in the countryside at least.
There we go. I'm like,
right. So maybe not city kids these days.
No, city kids these days are myself included. That's a little even being homeschooled, I still had too much city stuff to truly experience the like running wild across fields and stuff. Like you don't have that freedom.
But the attitude of it is very childlike. Like the attitude of the Hobbit culture, the Hobbit.
Very innocent.
Right, they're very innocent, right? And so you actually have a story of kids that are going on an adventure, right? And so I have it written down here, but the plot is very simple. A hobbit along with his friends, and the hobbit along with his friends are the children, right? Go on an adventure to get rid of an evil object. That's the entire plot, right? Along the way, they make friends, right? Have a fellowship. They come across enemy, right? In the end, evil object is destroyed and the great enemy is defeated.
Woo!
That's the entire plot. And I don't even know if that should be like spoiler because that's like the plot of almost every children's book ever, right? Even if it doesn't begin with children in the children's story, it starts with an innocent person or a group of people, and they go and get rid of the big bad evil.
I feel like it's also like one of the things is like it's a reverse quest, because usually a quest is to like go find something. This is we have found this great evil. It now needs to go away, and so it's the quest to destroy it. So it's not.
I think that's only a modern conception of quests. Because a lot of what we have today,
like Arthurian legend was often going and searching for stuff. Greek mythology is often going. No.
Arthurian legend does not. No. You don't search for Excalibur. King Arthur just found it.
Well, yeah, right time, right place. You're not really, you're looking for something. You don't know what it is, and then when you stumble across
No, but he wasn't
else,
looking for it. The original story, he wasn't looking for it, right? He just stumbles across it.
Well, he was looking for a sword for Kay. Sir Kay. He was. Right,
but
he was searching for something.
But not for the
not
quest
glory,
that he...
Trust,
Right. Yeah.
It was a mini quest.
Yeah.
It was a side quest of like, I need a sword. Let's go get a sword.
Right. But then if you look at the tales of... So what I'm saying is that MacGuffin aspect of the quest is a very modern emphasis, whereas, kind of pre-modern stories, especially fairy tale stories, they didn't emphasize on the MacGuffin. Right. And so it's really only when we look at it through a modern lens that we think the ring is kind of a reverse MacGuffin, like you're saying. But really, it's actually pretty normal for a fairy tale story. I'm not saying it's not good. Like just because it's a norm doesn't mean it's not good. Obviously, I think this story is really, really, really good, right? But I think the story of The Lord of the Rings is timeless because of its nuance on a very typical story, right? It's not a story about superheroes.
No.
Right?
These are very, very normal people.
That's the difference, though.
The only two that are even close to superheroes are like Legolas and Gandalf, and Legolas is kind of...
I mean, Legolas is the most superhero-ish.
No, Gandalf's the most superhero. He's essentially an angel that's like been like sent, like according to Tolkien lore, he's so impressive.
But he never. Well, okay. So here's where you kind of have to like delineate film, I guess, from book.
Yes.
But Gandalf never really shows his power.
He is not allowed to. No.
And I'm really not counting the Hobbit trilogy in this part.
Well, no, he didn't really show that much in The Hobbit either.
The Hobbit trilogy was atrocious in this aspect.
Wait, like
we'll go over some other day.
Compared to the book?
Well, of course.
Oh, I was like, well, what do you mean by
But in comparison also to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, what the Hobbit did with Gandalf, I'm very angry at. But that's okay. I'm not that angry. I got over it a long time ago.
I just made sure to keep it separate in my head, kind of like with Lord of the Rings. I knew that going into it that they weren't going to stay true to it, so I was like, nah.
Well, so the idea of magic in Middle-earth is very, very subtle, right? It's kind of
and so then they had a giant wizard battle, and you were like, nah.
Yeah, that was. I was like vilified when I watched that in theaters. I was like, this is not Tolkien. This is not what you do with his material. Like as I was watching those scenes in The Hobbit. But the Lord of the Rings trilogy actually portrays this really well. Gandalf very, 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 very rarely uses overt magic. Right? The most that you see is when he fights the Balrog.
And when he rescues Faramir.
Sorry?
And when he rescues Faramir.
When he rescues Faramir. That's
pretty much it.
I wouldn't say his rescue of Faramir was overt magic. Well, you mean the
light shield thing with the light thing.
Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought you meant when he took Faramir from the burning.
No.
Wood pile. And so
apparently that horse does not like fire.
I mean, does any horse?
That's true, but like apparently it wouldn't go near the fire, so they had to like use real fire. But then they also had to do like mirrors, and I just found out about it. It was cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool aspect of the way they had to do the film. So he did that, and then when he is Balrog, Faramir, and then. When he's
you're not counting Merry and Pippin in the forest, are you? Or when he meets them again as Gandalf the White?
No, I'm not counting that.
What are you?
I had one in my mind.
The
wizard
when you battle with Saruman?
Yes,
there we go.
Yeah, that was the most
Balrog,
overt
wizard battle with Sauron.
Right,
and they're kind of just tossing each other.
Yeah, right. There's no like flashy bangs or anything like that. They're just two old men winging sticks at each other, and they're flying all over the place, right? And so you don't have the overt like magic that you have in a lot of modern day stuff. It's all nuanced. And I think the nuance is what gives it a lot of meaning and depth, because without the detail, you can actually kind of think of it as more of a battle of minds, more of a battle of meaning and themes, right? And it's not superheroes, it's not gods, it's not wizards, it's not anyone with power that end up saving the world.
Nope. That was the express point, is that the people with power have the most difficult time saving the world.
Right. And I mean, Gandalf himself says, even the wise cannot know all ends, right? And Galadriel says the same thing, even the wisest cannot tell.
Yeah.
Right. And it's this idea of, and I love this about what Tolkien did, and of course then what was adapted into the film, is that he took kind of fairy tales that are very familiar to us, right? Or very familiar to his age, I guess. It was still very familiar to me. I don't know about you, but very familiar to average people in the West, right? And then he grafted this kind of sense of mythology and legend into the fabric of the world that he was creating. But then he writes it as a Catholic would write it. He writes it as a Christian would write it, right? He's Catholic, by the way, or he was Catholic, right?
Yeah.
So I don't mean Catholic as in Catholic versus Protestant or whatever. It's just like Catholic as in a universal Christian would write it, right? What is the universal Christian message? That's what Catholic means, right? Universal, right? So he writes it from the universal Christian message of what it actually is to defeat evil. Because when you look at all the mythologies of almost every culture, it's almost always the good guy or the superhero or the wizard or someone with magical abilities that saves the day. And Tolkien goes right up against that and says, no. These actions are great and often celebrated in modern culture or in our culture.
Yeah.
But the reality is that these great things are not what shift the world. The shifting of the world is done by people we don't really know at all. Right? The little tiny people, the hobbits, that are actually creating that change.
Well, it's also something where...
Or the actions of the small.
He did not mean this to be allegorical, okay? So this is my thoughts as based off of things that I've studied in my own actual thoughts. But you can see... So, like, for example, yes, Christ was well known where he was. But when he was...
But was he?
When he was alive... He was pretty much just known by the Jews and the people who met him, and so stuff was spread by word of mouth, but like...
And not even really the Jews.
Yeah.
So if you take our modern lenses away from us, and you actually go into the history of what was going on in that region, very little of it mentions Jesus.
Yeah, there are reports, so there are things.
Yeah, so you have Josephus, you have, I think, oh man, I forgot the Roman general's name. But you have these little glimpses.
Yeah.
But outside of Christendom, almost nothing.
Nobody really knew who he was.
Right. And
it wasn't until later when everyone else started talking about him.
Right.
He didn't really...
And not to say Jesus wasn't a celebrity in his own right, but just he was not what we would figure
consider
as
him today.
The mythological, legendary figure,
and so,
especially of the Greeks, the Romans, the Scandinavian Vikings, all these, or Norse. I shouldn't say only Vikings. Sorry, my fault. But the Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, Sumerian, and all these.
Well, Greek mythology, everything.
Yeah,
mythology.
So, right, and mythos in general celebrates these huge heroes.
Yeah.
Whereas the Christian goes, actually, it's the meek that inherit the earth. Right. It's really interesting. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien believes this so much that he wrote it so that actually it's not even the good guys. It's not even the good guys that win the day.
It happens because you let one of the bad guys live out of mercy and out of pity. This horrible monster, because Gollum is
it's the random act of pity from
no
Bilbo.
Longer what he originally was.
Yeah.
This ancient being who's given himself over to evil and
I think what's
he's the reason why it succeeds.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of fascinating, especially if you look at the film, because when you look at the book, The Hobbit came before it, right? So almost everyone who read Lord of the Rings read The Hobbit. But for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, most people who watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy had no idea about really The Hobbit. I mean, they kind of knew, but they didn't really know.
And then, you had to read it in school for a lot of people.
There was no film trilogy or anything like that, right? And so what happens then is people are introduced to this story, and the action that saves everybody is not shown in the film. Bilbo's pity is never shown in the film.
In The Lord of the Rings?
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They show him scrabbling for the ring, but they don't.
But they don't show him having pity on Gollum. So it's kind of like this. Again, it's that random act of kindness that suddenly brings about
almost 100 years later salvation.
The salvation of the world.
Yeah.
Right. In the end, even so, the good sets up a place for evil to defeat itself. Right. It's not good overcoming evil like we typically think of it, but it's rather good setting up a situation where evil in its own power, in its own corruption, actually kills itself.
Yes.
Because of that's what evil is, right? It's destruction, right? And the film trilogy is, I think, shows this off really, really well.
Even if it doesn't follow the same characterization and likeness of the books, it does have the soul of it. The essence of it is still there. It's still present in the films.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the things I really love about this film trilogy. The essentials of Tolkien are still there, right? And the essential message, which I think, again, is a very Christian message, right? A Catholic message, universally Christian message is, again, right? It's not the superheroes that will save the day. It's not the people with power that will save the day. It's not even the people that are wise that will save the day.
Yep.
It's just we can't even save ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
The good is not what it's not the big bombastic things. It's actually in the small, it's in the little things.
Yeah.
Right?
One of my favorite, I guess it's a philosophy technically, but one of my favorite ways of going about living life that I sometimes forget is that God works through everything. So even though he cannot control human will, because we're going to hurt other people and other people are going to hurt us, it's going to happen. That's just human beings tend to do that when they're not fully aligned with love. Even when bad stuff happens, God can use that to work some of the greatest things that will ever happen to you. Right. So with this, like,
and that's kind of the character trajectory of basically Gollum, right?
Yeah.
It's this creature that just I shouldn't say just creature, but creature in a general sense, right?
Yeah.
But he was a hobbit-ish character, right? Or person, and then he became kind of this creature that was known as Gollum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, is this very corrupt thing that has been kind of like he's
500 plus years of just
he's 500 years of living with this ring
deprivation.
Thing. Yeah.
Desolation.
And he's clearly, in our terms, he's beyond help.
The really sad part is I don't remember watching this for the first time. Okay, by the time that I remember watching this movie, I'd already seen it so many times, like all of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's something where I can.
By the time I remember, it's like by the time I remember my first day, I was out of the womb already for 14 years or something.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's something where watching these movies, I 100% understand why Frodo was so willing to hope for Smeagol's redemption.
Yeah.
And as I get older, it's one of those I do this with people where you give them the chance. You're like, okay, you can definitely be better than you are, and then they
Frodo
aren't.
And Sam are kind of like two sides of that.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I guess so. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. Oh man, I forgot.
Just say it.
All right. So this episode is just going to be the plot.
Oh yeah. Right? No, that was sorry. Hi guys. Dun, dun, dun.
This episode is just going to be the plot. We're actually going to do 3 episodes with this movie, with this film. This one's going to be the plot. We're going to talk about the characters in a second episode, and then in a third episode, we're going to do the themes. So we're dividing this just as much as the film trilogy and the books have been divided. We're just going to take it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Mostly because Isaac is wanting to take this as one film. So, yeah.
The second that I did the research and I was able to wrap my mind around it, I was like, no, I agree with you. It is one film that's split up into 3 movies, or one movie that's split up into 3 films, however you want to phrase it. And
of course, because I'm right. No, I'm kidding. It's just a joke.
Anyway.
Yeah, but it's the characters of Frodo and Sam are those 2 aspects of dealing with Gollum, of how we psychologically would deal with something like this. And it's really fascinating to see the interaction that happens. I think,
and you can see how it degrades their characters too, because it's something where Sam ends up having slightly more ability to stand on his own, just a little bit, and stand in what he believes by being against Gollum.
Against that.
Really? But Frodo ends up kind of mentally collapsing.
I think that's the on the surface idea. But I think there's a lot more that you can go with that. But the main message is, right, there's this part of us that pities it, and there's part of us that really hates it, right? And it's these nuances that go into the story of what does redemption look like, right? What does it really look like for evil to be defeated? And in the end, you don't even really have the defeat of evil by Frodo. Frodo never, in both the book and the films, which fails. I love, I'm so thankful that Peter Jackson kept Frodo from dropping it, because that's like one of the main parts of the message that Tolkien is trying to write here. Frodo can't bring himself to drop the ring. Right? And that's a devastating critique on humanity, I think,
well, it's also,
or human nature.
It's about, because the ring, which it is and it isn't a MacGuffin, because MacGuffins are supposed to be like essentially irrelevant themselves. It's like,
well, they don't have to be.
They don't have to be, but so with
like
this,
it could
it's something
be a nuke,
where
right?
with the ring.
I think in one of the Mission Impossibles, it's a nuke, something like that. I forgot.
That makes sense. I don't know.
But still a MacGuffin, still something that you're chasing.
Yeah, and so with the ring, it's something where the way the Tolkien wrote it is for it to represent sin.
Yeah.
And so each character has their own relationship with sin.
Yeah.
And so it's something where with Frodo, he's struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled so long to get to this place and get rid of it, that when he gets there, he is worn down, and in his true like exhausted state, he can't.
Yeah.
And it is supposed to be this thing. And like, honestly, we're not even sure if Sam could do it, or if anyone else, like Gollum
Sam
wouldn't have
could
done
not
it.
have done it. No one else
could have done it. And
right.
Gollum technically couldn't have done it.
Actually,
he only did it on accident.
Right. That's one of the, I think, the beautiful moments of the end of Fellowship. And again, we're going to talk about this more in the characters episode. But when Aragorn himself at the end realizes like the
I
duality.
Cannot go with you.
No,
which part?
He says he right. The obvious kind of thought, or the obvious implication is, I cannot go with you, right? When Aragorn says, I would have gone with you to the end, to the very fires of Mordor, right? But the implication of it, because he's closing Frodo's hand, like he can't look at it anymore. He knows he's going to take it, right? But the implication of that is, I would have gone with you, but there's two sides to that, right? I would have gone with you because of this thing. My human nature wants me to follow you because of this thing. But me being there,
I don't know if I would be a liability or not.
I'm pretty sure I would have killed you to take it, right? That idea, right? I would have gone with you to the very fires of Mordor.
That in itself would get its own episode of like going through each character. You could probably do multiple episodes, but like each character
right.
and like if that character had been responsible for taking the One Ring, how would it have ended? Because do you think Legolas would have brought it to his father, or like used it for himself to like take over the thing? So, like there's so many different things that could have happened that didn't.
There's a lot of different ones. I mean, so I don't want to bash on the Hobbit trilogy, because I actually like the Hobbit trilogy.
No, I love the Hobbit trilogy, but
than
it's
most people that I know.
But they're good as films. They're good as movies. They're fun that way.
I think they're fun movies.
But you just can't compare them to The Hobbit, and you can't compare them to Lord of the Rings.
Oh, you mean the book? Yeah.
In order to still appreciate them.
Well, so what they were trying to do in the Hobbit trilogy was bring a little bit more depth to Legolas's character, right? But I think the mistake, one of the mistakes that they made was not understanding that you still need Legolas. You still need to show why Legolas cannot take the ring, right? And I don't think they showed that.
I think they showed enough of his character that if you really ponder it, you can figure it out.
If you really headcanon
it's not obvious.
Right. It's but there's no connecting strings, so you have to kind of like.
Wait. So why do you think Legolas can't take the ring?
I think Legolas can't take the ring. Let me think. So, man, because I have.
I was just like, he has daddy issues, and the one chick he was in love with was in love with someone else, which isn't actually canon, is that in the Tolkien universe?
No,
yeah, that was just the movies.
No. So right. So a lot of what you have to take as of Legolas not being able to take the ring is simply just like you have to take it in the books, at least. You have to take it by the history of the elves, right? So the history of the elves is actually more violent and more more corrupt than man.
Yes.
That's actually the story of the Silmarillion, right? Where you have, you usually think of these elves. By the time you get to the Lord of the Rings, you think these elves are like these perfect people, but they're not.
No.
They're like super messed up.
Yes.
and so that's the backstory that you would have to bring into Legolas's character.
Okay.
Right. And so that's why Legolas wouldn't be able to take it. But I wish they showed it in the Hobbit trilogy. Right.
Okay.
Because you spent so much time with these elves. And so I wish you could take like, they did hints of it where the forest elves are more savage than their Noldorian kin, right?
Yes.
And so the Sylvan elves are more savage. I think that's a line. The Sylvan elves are more savage than their Noldorian kin. I think that's
something
a line
like that. That sounds
in The Hobbit.
You like it.
And so they referenced it, but they didn't really show Legolas.
The savagery.
You're right in that. And so.
Well, he's also supposed to be like surprisingly buff for an elf. So he's also like this like he's usually considered ugly by elf standards because he's not the slender thing that they like obviously Orlando Bloom is not that bulky, so like that wasn't that. But
he did get bulky a little bit by the time they got to The Hobbit.
Yeah,
they bulked him up.
Yeah. Apparently he lost weight and wasn't eating well before Lord of the Rings.
Oh, was it right?
No lembas bread.
Yeah. Right. So he was just he was
one
home,
bite is enough to fill the stomach of a grown man.
Right.
So how many did you eat?
4.
Okay,
great.
if you don't relate to that, I don't know if we can be friends. Like,
I mean, one of the things that I always tell, or one of the things that you ask, it's like the Harry Potter houses, right? You always ask, what house are you in? But the thing that you ask with Lord of the Rings is, what race do you think you are? And I'm always like, I'm a hobbit. I'm a hobbit through and through. I will eat and just celebrate and be comfortable living. I'll just do that all day.
Extremely judgmental of things that are outside.
Well, I'm not that.
Of like you.
But I just prefer almost always to just sit in comfort and just be
I
at
always
home,
go back and forth
drinking
between
my water,
man and hobbit. Mankind
I'm
and
definitely
hobbitry.
not man, which is a weird commentary on my existence.
That's interesting.
I'm not elf, kind of dwarf. I'm a little bit dwarf. I'm
more dwarf than I am elf, but that's about it.
I do probably have that little bit of like isolationist, like like pride, arrogance kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. She definitely affirms that. Thanks.
The really funny part is I said that without thinking, and then I had to think about it and was like, yeah, no, that's good. No, that's...
Yeah, and then so I'm a dwarf hobbit kind of amalgamation.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is again my number one, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of filmmaking, though, in terms of cinema, like the music, the story, the writing, the characters, this is a film, and I do mean as one film. Mm-hmm. I can watch this over and over and over, and I will learn something new. I will learn something new either about story. I will learn something new about film work. I will learn something new about character study. I will learn something new about almost everything, every aspect that a film has. I will learn something. Mm-hmm. And I've watched this, again, many, many, many times. I'm pretty sure I've watched this trilogy more than most people have watched like single movies, right? Most people. I know there are people that have watched it, or watched a favorite movie like hundreds of times and things like that. I'm not one of those people. I want to be one of those people sometimes. Yeah. I want to be a hobbit and just sit and watch this trilogy.
I have friends that live in New Zealand, and I'm just like, Can you smuggle me over? Can I live there with you?
Do you know after The Hobbit, when they were doing the Hobbit trilogy, they actually rebuilt the set and they just left it there.
Yes.
So you can actually go visit Hobbiton.
Wait, I thought it was there before that.
No. So before it was just,
and then it was overrun by goats, sheep. It was overrun by sheep.
So what they did in the first trilogy was they built it, but they only built the outsides. They never built the insides. And so all the inside shots that you see in the trilogy are studio work. They're studio houses, warehouses where
and they also
go
like
in.
redid stuff so that because there was so much set work that they would reuse a lot of set pieces and reuse a lot of costumes and then just adjust the details or adjust like the heads or adjust the way that it looks.
Right, because you had to have Hobbit versus Gandalf, right, and everything like that. But then when they did the Hobbit trilogy, they actually they did it for real, and so they actually went back to quote unquote the Shire, right, and they dug the holes and they built the infrastructure of the insides rather than just simply the outsides. And so you can go there and actually tour Hobbiton now as a thing, which is pretty cool, I think. Anyways,
it's dope.
It is one of these films. This film, again, I can watch it over and over again. I'll learn something new. It's also one of the very few Western films that gives me what I call the Studio Ghibli nostalgia feeling.
Oh,
like when I
never
watch
pieced
it,
that together, but you're right. Like you want to go live there,
right?
And you want to go be like a side character,
and you want,
you'd be okay with that.
You're a fly on the wall, and you're just like,
absolutely.
Hey, Frodo, talk.
I'll be one of the fat hobbits that gets to drink beer and fall over, like fedge. Yes.
I'll be the hobbit with the furry feet that's just like crossed his legs and just proud feet. Right? I'll be like one of those. I want to experience it, but it feels like I've been there for some reason. Like it feels like a part of my past that I don't remember.
Well, that's how Tolkien wrote it, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how Tolkien wrote it. Is he wrote it? That's why you have thousands of years of history, and then this story.
Right. Yeah.
And so he gives you this sense of like this city has been lived in, this world has been lived in, and it has a past. So it's not, you're not like, that's one of the things that Tolkien did is like most of the people, it's like, oh, you're in the bright days of this, that, and the other, and this is the heyday of everything, and you're experiencing the brand new things, or it's in the future, it's in the past, but it's in like the best of the past. No, you're in the ruins of one of the most glorious things. Like when you know elven history, this is the ruins. This is the scraps. This is what's left. These are the people who didn't die. Like, this is what's left.
Yeah.
And it's so magnificent that, like, not only does it make you wonder about the former glory of that, like,
of
when
course,
you look at Moria,
definitely.
and you're in Moria,
Minas Tirith, all of those, right? Even in the Hobbit trilogy, I would say.
Yeah.
So, kind of bridging that.
Yeah.
They took that idea from Tolkien.
Khazad-dooming it.
They took that idea from Tolkien, and they actually did it, right? In the sets, in the costumes,
it's so good.
the amount of detail that goes into just the construction of Bag End, right? When you see the props and you see the food and you see the maps and the parchment, the fire, the furnaces, the window, everything.
It's been lived in a while,
right? It feels like an old home, and it's. Again, like that Studio Ghibli feeling that I've only really gotten from Studio Ghibli films, which is this when I watch The Lord of the Rings, I feel like it's a part of my history that I don't remember, but I really, really want to go back to.
I have books that are like that, but I don't have films that are like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And so, again, this is one of those few films that does that for me. And then I only watch, of course, the extended edition, right? So it's a 9-hour.
No, 11.2.
Okay, 11.2 hours.
It is 11.2. The theatrical editions are 9 hours.
Okay, so 11.2.
2.5-ish, and then the last one is 3 for theatrical. And then with the
every
extended,
one of them
it's like it's 3, and then like 3.5.
So it's No, the last one's 4 hours.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So it's like, is it 3 and then 3.5 and then 4?
I think it's 3, 4.
Okay.
I think. I have to go back and actually look at it.
That makes sense, but one of them would have to be slightly longer, but it doesn't matter. But yeah. But it's over 11 hours.
It's 3, 3.5, and 4.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry, my fault. And so, see, I have to get those numbers in my head. This is
why you prepare for these things. You have a marathon. You make sure you have your popcorn, you have your food, you have your water, because you're going to need a lot of water. And then you're going to need to be able to know that you need to have a bathroom close by, so you can like run to the bathroom quickly, so that way you don't have to pause the movie forever.
You
you can do that.
I'm just kidding. No one, please. don't do that. Yes. Whoever's listening, please don't do that.
And then make sure you get food. And one of the things that most people do when they have marathons is you have like a 20-minute break in the middle, or like a 30-minute break, so that way you have that food and water. And
that's what the extended editions have, that 30-minute credit scene, so that after you have that main, you just go to the restroom, go get your stuff, and you come back.
Really sad part where my family, like, depending on what time we're watching it, we will actively watch the credits because we like staring at the names and picking out the funny ones.
For 30 minutes?
Kind of.
I'm never watching it with your family.
When they do the fan club, and so it's like, hey, like, here's all the fans and whatnot. Yeah. So I guess there's like 5 minutes before that happens.
Yeah, the trilogy has surprisingly a lot of honor for the fans. Like, not surprisingly bad, but kind of this should be the norm.
It should be the norm, especially if you're putting a bunch of money and stuff like towards films. Like,
I remember when this trilogy was coming out, like the amount of online like kind of discussion and notoriety this film trilogy was getting, and then, it
affected world politics too. Like Two Towers alone.
I think Obama.
Like that was one of the things. No. It was before that. It was Bush, I thought.
Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry. I remember something else. Sorry.
Anyway, but no, like all the tree stuff because the Ents.
Yeah.
Just that one thing alone, and you have thousands, hundreds of thousands of people across the world that are like, save the trees.
Yeah.
Just because there's one film.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I sometimes forget about it, and then like I see pictures, and I'm like, oh wow, that was
I remember like I'm pretty sure during that time was when the OneRing.net or something like that came up, and then I would be going on the forums and just like
I remember that,
reading through that kind of stuff.
I was not involved in that, but I remember that.
I didn't post or anything. I was just like read what people were talking about, look at their discussions and everything like that. Like this film really blew up in terms of pop culture and everything. it's so good. What do you think is so? Obviously, like I watched it in the 3 sections that it's in, and this time, as I was going through it, I kind of looked at it from the story perspective, and kind of thought, okay, what is it? What is each part trying to, like, what is the message of each part? What is the message of the Fellowship? What is the message of the 2 Towers? What is the message of the Return of the King? Did you go through that way, or go through the story that way, or?
Again, I'm a very character-based person. Like, I love characters, and so it's something where, like, but it's not even just characters. It's also like this movie is almost untouchable for me. Like you can't. The reason,
you can't touch it. Like you can't
kind
feel
of
it on your fingers.
No, like
I'm just kidding.
like it's so good that it's like this is what I aspire to.
Oh yeah. Like. This is what Peter Jackson aspires to.
Like, not only pretty much,
right.
But it's something where, like, even with the books, like the fact that, like, it has formed my entire way. Like, between this.
Sorry, I didn't mean it in a derogative way. Like Peter Jackson hasn't done anything good after the Lord of the Rings. I just mean like
this is the best thing he's ever done.
I think he thinks that way too.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure most of the people that were involved in this project also think that way. Like this is, if not the best, it's one of the best things that we've ever done. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely, hands down.
Yeah. No disrespect to Sir Peter Jackson.
Is he a sir?
Yeah. He's been knighted.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't know why I didn't know that, and I don't know why that was so amusing to me. Anyway, but it's something where this is one of the few things where for me, like, okay, so for example, right now, like I have a poetry book that I'm working on, and it breaks my heart because I want it to be, so like I'm illustrating the whole thing. On top of that, I've written the whole thing. On top of that, I want the poems to not just be like, I want an audiobook, but I want it to be more like an album. So I want it to be like sung, okay? And then on top of that, like I have the story in my head. And so it's something where like, I have it with this one. I have it with like my dragon story. I have like there are at least 3 or 4 different stories that I have where like I want the comprehensive, in-depth, like I want to create the entire universe and the backstory and everything. I want to create the current world and the current story, and then I want to put it into like as many different mediums as I can to properly express like all of it. Because with Lord of the Rings, you have that. You have the books, and then you have the movies, but like you have the soundtracks, and you have the in-depth, and you like there are Tolkien scholars.
Oh yeah,
dude.
There are Tolkien scholars.
There are people who
that's
make
how
money studying
or he was
Tolkien. Yeah. Okay, like I want that, and it's not just like I don't necessarily want the fame. I want to have that respect for myself of just like I've done this. Like I want to sit back, relax, and be like, whoa, like I just created a universe. Like
I mean, rest in peace, Christopher Tolkien. But like when he was doing his dad's work, like releasing his dad's work, there was so much of it that he had to release it in like piecemeal.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have the Lord of the Rings, and then you have the Hobbit, and I think Tolkien himself released a few other ones because he was a Oxford professor?
Yes.
Was he the Oxford professor?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he was the Oxford professor. And so he had a job of as a philologist, right? He
graduated from Oxford.
Oh, so he was working in Cambridge then. You're looking it up.
Yep.
Our silence on the podcast is very endearing to our readers, I'm sure. Or listeners, not readers.
No, I want you. Oh, can you sing a Lord of the Rings thing while I'm doing this? Can you?
The road goes ever on and on. So that's what I was asking for.
That's a good one.
I can't believe you don't know
I know
that
the tone. The da 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 da. Like I know. Da da na na na.
That's what I always picture from now on. Like when I picture someone singing any kind of soundtrack, I just picture Bart Simpson doing it because that's what happens. Or what is it, Milhouse? One of them did it with the 20th Century Fox Simpsons. At the beginning, it was the da 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 da, and then ba 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 ba. Right. So I think it was Milhouse or Bart they were doing like the ba 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 ba. So
Pembroke College. Which is in Oxford.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so he was in Oxford. All right, I was right. All right, we're going to delete that entire singing section because I'm just kidding.
You're going to enjoy our love of this film. And then you will love this film because that's just what you need to do if you're going to like it. Just Lord of the Rings deserves love. And it deserves like your love.
How did we get on Tolkien with... Oh, yeah, he created this world, right? But he didn't really release it. It was only the Lord of the Rings. It was, I'm pretty sure, the Book of Lost Tales and The Hobbit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was only afterwards that Christopher Tolkien released his dad's stuff posthumously, right? So you have the Silmarillion release, you have the History of Middle-earth release.
I have like a Tolkien companion thing as well. There's that one was, I believe, released by him.
Yeah, everything basically now is kind of released by him. So the Children of Húrin, the Tale of Luthien and Beren and Luthien, the Fall of Gondolin, all these kinds of separate stories come out after Tolkien has actually passed, right? But he created all of it during his lifetime. And so, we're still kind of receiving the cusp of that 50 years later.
Nerds all over the world still have material to go through.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So that is kind of the summary of The Lord of the Rings. A little bit.
Kind of. Yeah.
We didn't really get into it. No. That's how much stuff there is.
There's so much stuff.
But we have 2 more episodes to go.
Yeah.
Right? We have 2 more episodes to go.
Yeah.
In the next episode, we're going to go over the characters.
Yeah.
And we have something interesting prepared for that. Or Rosemary has something interesting prepared for that. No, I'm just kidding. We both have something interesting prepared for that.
I was looking at it like, what?
Wait, is it just me? No, wait. That's not in the notes. So we have something special prepared for that. And then in the 3rd episode, we're going to be going over the themes. And because of... Now that I realize how little
Does it theme odd to you, Isaac?
Was that your dime segment joke?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're going to do themes last, and that will be the 3 episodes that we're going to do for The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a draw from the hat
well, we
because
have a hat,
this is...
but we don't need the hat because the hat is...
Oh, yeah. Rosemary actually brought her hat, her empty hat today. Don't know why, but, God bless her soul. It
carries my sorrows. No, it doesn't.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I need a bigger hat.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
You do need a bigger hat. Yeah. Probably won't fit this room.
It need to fit like the Eye of Sauron, like a giant cap that just goes over.
It is
like,
the
the
Eye of
tower.
Sauron, really.
Is that?
It's just the Eye of Sauron.
Yes. So I have a concentrated form of myself somewhere that it doesn't resemble the ring. It's some other thing. It's like a mixture between like the ring and a Horcrux of just like...
The Eye of Sauron is your Horcrux
and my piece
sadness.
of soul after I've murdered people is just there.
Oh, you've now admitted to murdering people. Okay.
Theoretically, according to my poetry book I have. Oh. It's actually really amusing because
all right, so if anyone is out there, if you don't hear about Isaac Who again, you know what happened.
Oh,
just saying.
All right.
Just saying.
Yeah, if he disappears,
if Isaac disappears, you guys
I will
guys
apparently
know.
be a suspect.
The suspect. Only suspect.
A suspect.
Admitted suspect.
Maybe
even.
Suspect.
She's not even denying it right now. She's actually affirming it. This is like one of those rapper songs.
I love your wife. It would depend on whether or not your wife is okay with me murdering you. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't be. So it's never going to happen.
That was the alibi, guys.
That's not an alibi. That's taking away motive. That's all.
Help me. No, I'm kidding. All right. So we don't have a draw from the hat.
But
we do have a dime segment. So... Woo. Originally, Rosemary had something pretty hilarious prepared.
So Isaac, weeks ago, we knew that we were doing Lord of the Rings last. So weeks and weeks, probably months ago, he was like, hey, for that Lord of the Rings episode, one of them, we're going to do like this quote. And I was like, all right, cool. So I wrote it down to remember, like I made notes about it. I had reminders set. Like I made sure that, all right, when we get to this one, This is the quote. This is the quote for one of the episodes. We got this, okay? And the quote that he wanted was in Return of the King. You have the Rohirrim are there to like kind of save Gondor a little bit, and King Theoden is trying to hype up the group by saying we're all gonna die today, and this is essentially kind of like we're gonna be here. Like let's go.
I hate how you've characterized that. There's anger in my heart right now. about how you just characterized that.
Apparently, it's an unfair characterization.
I'm really angry right now.
Would you care to characterize it?
How dare you take one of the most sacred moments in the Return of the King and turn it into that?
This is amazing.
I'm so
excited right now. Isaac's rage is a beautiful thing. Anyway, but not gorgeous because it's just every day. Anyway,
now she's asking for it. All right.
Anyway, point is
this
quote,
morning as Rosemary came to record the podcast, I was like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So now,
essentially, yeah. So the quote of the day is a joke. It is a pun because Isaac doesn't freaking laugh at puns, and I'm sad about that.
You're still trying to make me laugh, right?
I'm still trying to make you laugh.
I'm trying to laugh too.
I'm really
I'm trying
hoping.
to find the joy in your puns.
Ironically, Titanic was mentioned in this episode, so this is somewhat related, but very vaguely. I have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy this now. All right, hit me. What is it? What do the movies Titanic and The Sixth Sense have in common? I can't even say it right.
Was that part of the
What do the movies
answer?
Titanic and The Sixth Sense have in common?
Wait, does this have to do with The Lord of the Rings?
No.
Oh. Maybe we should do the previous quote.
We gotta answer the question first.
What do the movies Titanic and The Sixth Sense have in common?
It's so good.
I don't know.
I'm on tenterhooks right now. They both have icy dead people.
Oh, haha.
Okay, fine. I was just like, good. I was waiting. I was like, it's clever because they're icy in the water. They're icy dead people, but it's also like I see dead people.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
That's not a spoiler for The Sixth Sense.
I feel like everyone knows about the Titanic, and that's pretty much the only thing that most people know about The Sixth Sense.
All right, yeah. The quote is
that's pretty much it. I haven't seen The Sixth Sense, and I'm still just like, yeah, I think it's icy dead people, and that's about it. So anyway, but yeah, Titanic and The Sixth Sense both have icy dead people. But
what does that have to do with The Lord of the Rings?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
The original dime segment was death. That was the original dime segment, and Isaac didn't want it.
Oh man.
So you get a really, really bad joke. And the quote anyways, because I really wanted to say that. I'd been preparing. I was so like embarrassed of just like, I'm going to have to shout this. I'm going to have to do this. And then I was like, you know what? All right, fine. And then I come in today and Isaac's like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, I prepared. Okay. Anyway, but yeah.
I have pain right now in my heart.
Good.
Because.
Good.
You didn't pick something from Lord of the Rings.
I created that pain. Why would? Because we could talk about Lord of the Rings quotes for days.
All right.
We could just go through the entire Lord of the Rings movie, and then after each word for word would be like, oh my God, that's such a good line. Like we would just like say the line, and then oh my God, that's such a good line, and then like go through the whole movie, and it would take us days to go through the movies because we would just be saying like, oh my gosh, it's such a good line.
All right. Your job for next time is to find a Lord of the Rings pun. There has to be some, right?
Have to be. I don't know.
Maybe
any,
I'll laugh
though.
at those. I don't know.
Nah, or you're just you'll get angry again.
I want to laugh. I really want to laugh.
But he can't. He is incapable of joy.
That's not true. I have joy.
Unlike with Inside Out, joy is missing from his life.
Oh, that's definitely
He's
not
only
true.
Organized by the other ones.
Just when I do this podcast.
Just when it's around
kidding.
me. Joy hides in my face.
Oh, yes, that's actually true.
Me.
All joy hides in your face.
That could be a compliment of like, joy hides in my face. Like it's in my face, but it also just hides from my face. And
all right. And with that, we are done with the first episode of the Lord of the Rings episodes of our top 10 podcast movies of all time. We're really glad you guys joined us. We'll see you guys next time with the characters of Lord of the Rings. See you later.
Bye.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.